I had non-Hodgkin's Burkitt's lymphoma, and I was 13 years old at the time, at the end of my 7th grade summer going into 8th grade. Probably one thing that I learned about myself throughout this whole experience is to never take anything for granted and always look for the best in things and to never give up and to have a lot of strength and courage throughout it. Some things that gave me joy when I was going through my treatments is to know that there was always an end to the treatments, and whenever I came home I always had friends and family there for me, no matter if I felt good, bad, or if I was mad or was I happy. The thing that gave me the most hope is being able to get back out on the football field and to be able to know that I went through cancer, survived, and be able to compete with people my age that didn't have to go through what I went through, and to be able to be at their level of competing. Probably one of the funnest things that happened when I was in treatment is that a couple of my close buddies came and my cousins were there, and we all went down into the lobby and we took a bunch of wheelchairs and we were wheelchair racing around in the lobby at like 10 o'clock at night, and we ended up getting yelled at by a security guard. A lot of times I did wonder why it was me and not someone else, and my doctor said that there was no like rhyme or reason to why I got it. It's just like my name got picked out of a hat, but I always just trusted in God, and I knew that He would always got me through things that He puts me on. Right before my transplant in January, I had a cardiologist, and he told me that I would never be able to play football again because of the lung deficiency and my heart deficiency that I had. So throughout all transplant that was going through my head, and then finally once I was done, we ended up finding another cardiologist, and he told me that I had to go through cardiac rehab, so I did that for about 6 months, and then once I was done with the cardiac rehab is when I started doing the training with my football team. And my coaches, like I went to the trainer, and the trainer like did special things with me, like to help with my cardiac, and then once it came ready for that first game, I was competing with everyone else.
I was 53 years old when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I have been a survivor for 12 years. One thing I learned about myself was how strong I was. I always wanted to be really strong like my mom, but I never thought I was until I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I saw so much of myself from my mom. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, my sisters I have 6 sisters, all got together and we met at Panera, and they had pictures and cards, and they bought me this necklace, and I wear this all the time, and it has 3 hearts on it, and the middle one is me, and the one around that is my mother, and they are the heart holding us all. I think my husband, because every time I would say to him at night, laying in bed, "Do you think I'm gonna die?" He would always tell me no. And sometimes I'd get mad because how do you know I'm not gonna die? But he was always there reassuring me that I was gonna live, when there were times I had no idea if I was gonna live or not. I have to say that when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, someone said to me, "Your life will never be the same." But she didn't tell me how great it was gonna be afterwards. You know, I was scared. I thought, oh my God, my life's never gonna be the same. It's so much better than it was. And I'm really happy about that. I think the first thing I would say to them is stay off the internet. Because I was diagnosed 12 years ago, and I had HER2 positive breast cancer. And when I looked on the internet for HER2 positive, all I would ever see is it is an aggressive form of breast cancer. Never did it say it had a great outcome or anything like that. So I really thought I was going to die. But if I really listened to my doctor, my oncologist, I would have known that I was going to live. But I searched the internet all the time, just to know I don't know if I was looking for Diana Fretwell is going to live. I don't know what I was looking for.
I was 18 years old when I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. I've been a survivor for about a year now. I was a dancer before cancer, that rhymes. But no, when I was diagnosed, my type of leukemia was a very aggressive one, and it had to be hit really hard with a heavy chemo regimen and so I actually lived at the hospital for 6 months straight. I didn't get to be outside of the hospital really. Some people it's different where they get to go home and they're home for a while and then they come back for chemo and then get to go home again for a while. But for me, it was just straight chemo all the way through. I had like a 10-day break around Christmas time and then I was back to living in the hospital. And it was really hard, but luckily for me, I had a very supportive mother who stayed at the hospital with me the whole time. She quit her job and she stayed all 6 months and took care of me, so I was never alone. I mean, some people that would be their worst nightmares for their mothers to be in the same room with them for 6 months straight. But for me, it really helped. She's so supportive of me. So I think that something that cancer taught me was that the best wealth we can have is time that we get to spend with the people that we love. And it really taught me that the simple things are the important things in life. And things that were so important to me before, when I was diagnosed with cancer, it kind of just like went out the door and wasn't even relevant at the time. Things that I thought were so important really weren't, and I guess I learned what's really important in my life. Something that's really cool that happened during my cancer journey is I actually got to meet some of the Cleveland Indians' wives. They came to the hospital and they would do smoothie day at our hospital, so I got to meet Corey Kluber's wife, Amanda, and we just bonded over smoothies. Her and her husband, Corey Kluber, decided to give me tickets to go to the World Series, so that was absolutely amazing. I got to take my dad to the World Series, so that was something really awesome that I got to do.
I was 40 years old at the time of diagnosis of breast cancer, and I was 41 at the time of diagnosis for melanoma. I've been a survivor for 5 years for melanoma and 6 years for breast cancer. You know, out of the gate, at time of diagnosis, I knew that I was going to end up a better person, a better mom, look for opportunities to give back, to help other people through the journey. I learned that I'm much stronger than I anticipated going in. It was very scary, obviously, but I learned through it that, we are so much stronger than we believe we are. What gave me joy during treatment is my family, especially, young children. My children were 2 and 5 at the time, and all the support from family and friends, just the cards and the prayers, and just the amount of support from far away. Like even people would say, my aunt's church in Texas, their prayer group is praying for you. And so the reach far and just the level of support and, from work to friends to family, it just really got me through the journey. All in all, I look at my cancer journey as 2 to 3 years, including surgeries and a year of aggressive chemotherapy. So I did preoperative chemotherapy to shrink the tumors, and then I had surgery in the midst of my year of chemotherapy. And then when I was getting ready to go back to work after my surgery is when I found that I had melanoma. So that was an additional surgery. And so I would say end to end, it was about a 2 to 3 year process, including reconstruction. I'd say the greatest memory I have is the day that my hair started coming out, of all things. So it was 13 days in after my first treatment, and I had talked openly with the children. Again, they were 2 and 5. So on day 13, that morning, my hair started coming out and very quickly, and I was driving her to daycare, and I just threw on a hat and thought I have to get to work and just try to live as normal life as possible. And so a chunk of hair came out. I didn't shave my head. And so I went to put the window down, and she said, "Mommy, what are you doing?" And I said, "Mommy's hair is coming out. Like we talked about, the medicine would be working." And so she said, "Can I have that?" And so she put it in her little car seat, like cup holder. And I said, "Why are you saving that?" And she said, "It's like a little bird's nest." And it was just so cute and so innocent of a child. I get called often just to help counsel people through the cancer treatment, but especially breast cancer. And so we just talk about some things that, I learned during the journey. And so you think about things like hair loss or fatigue or nausea, but there are other side effects too. And so, I just like to share that, my learnings, and everybody's experience is different, but anything that I learned through the journey to help another person get through it and get on the other end and survive the disease, brings me hope.
It was just a few days after I turned 39 and I had breast cancer, invasive breast cancer. I was diagnosed in 2014, so a couple of years. I found that I had a very strong strength like I never knew I had. Faith in God that I knew I had, but didn't know it was that strong. A family that was unbelievable, friends who are unbelievable. The support I had was, I can't even, it's overwhelming. My favorite part about going through my treatments, I know that sounds really weird, but my favorite part was that I spent every second with my husband. That was his time with me. I had a lot of people who offered to come to treatments with me to my chemo, and he wanted it was very important for him for it just to be us and for us to have that intimate moment together. And as frustrated as I was at first with that, because I wanted other people, I had so many people who wanted to be there, that was my most favorite and most special parts. And for sure, that was definitely my favorite parts. And we always would go somewhere special to eat, and we would go special places, and we kind of made it a thing. And humor was a big one for us, a big one. I laughed I would laugh at things that people were like, how do you laugh at that? I remember we went to the geneticist, and that was a tough one. And we were sitting there, and they were talking about how, through treatment and that I might gain a little bit of weight. And I said, great, I'm gonna be fat and bald. And Matt looked at me, he goes, we can be twins. And my oncologist had asked me at one point, she's like, have you taken all of this in? Because I would always make jokes and stuff. And I'm like, I have. This is just the way I process. I would say that this is your journey. Everyone has an opinion about what the doctor should be doing, about what you should be doing, but you and your doctors have that relationship, and you have a relationship with God in that you have to be comfortable with that. And it can be a little frustrating sometimes because everybody has advice, and some is good, some is bad. I also feel like everyone who gives advice, they're trying to be nice, they're trying to be helpful. Even if it doesn't come out right, even if it lands wrong with you, you have to remember, if you can keep it in perspective, that it's coming from a helpful place and a good place in their hearts, then that can help a little bit. It's gonna sound really weird, but I would never change going through it. Because I think there are a lot of gifts to gain from it.
When I was diagnosed, I was 6 years old, and I had Ewing sarcoma, which is a rare bone cancer. Well, when I first started treatment, I was 6, so obviously I was kind of scared. I didn't really know what to think. I had only known, all I knew about cancer was that people a lot of times die from it. So I kind of was always afraid that I was gonna die. I didn't really know what was kind of going on. At treatment, I always had fun. I played games with my nurses and stuff, so I didn't really hate that part as much. I didn't really get sick a whole lot, so it wasn't horrible because I didn't really understand everything that was going on, but I was just afraid of dying. So I was diagnosed with cancer in January, and then I think it was in June, we had my femur, where my cancer was, replaced with this rod thing that kind of grew, it was supposed to grow with me, and I would have to go back and have surgeries to kind of expand it, and I had that surgery in Columbus. And then a couple months later in August, I had a really bad fever, so we went back to my oncologist, because I was still getting chemo and everything, and they determined that there was a really bad infection with the surgery that I had had, and so the only way for me to survive was for them to amputate my leg. So I remember particularly when they told me that my leg was going to be amputated. My parents came in the room, and a bunch of my nurses and doctors, everyone came in, and my parents were we're going to have to amputate your leg. And I was my parents, that was the first time I ever saw my dad cry. My parents were both crying, everyone was kind of crying in the room with me. And I remember just being why are you crying? It's okay, I'm going to be okay, I can live with one leg, it's not that big of a deal, I'm still going to be alive. And so I just remember that. As a 6-year-old, I think it was honestly better because I didn't really understand everything that was going on. And then I had my entire, the rest of my life, now I'm able to learn from that and adapt to it. As if I was diagnosed now, I would probably take the news a lot harder. I mean, my brother and I still fought all the time, and we didn't really change that at all. We still teased each other. I remember a lot of times going into my surgeries, I would have shirts like "brother for sale" or like "my brother drives me bananas," and like we have pictures of me going into surgeries with those shirts on and stuff. I've definitely met a lot of really interesting people, or people who have had a big impact on my life. Mostly I met like my nurses. I still keep in touch with a lot of them today. To a current cancer patient, I would definitely say that don't get discouraged. Like, just keep a positive attitude, because even though it's a horrible thing to have to go through, there's a lot of good things that can come out of it, and you can be cured, and things can definitely get better.
I was 43 when I was diagnosed with GBM. I learned that if I don't take care of the things right now, there's no guarantee that I'll wake up tomorrow. I remember Jillian, who was 7 years old, came down to put her head on my shoulder. That meant so much to me, my wife. I remember that I didn't want to go on with my radiation, and she made me go to it. Otherwise, I would have died. I would tell them, live life the way you want to live it, because tomorrow might never come.
I'm Shelley, I'm Jeff's wife. Jeff has GBM, which is glioblastoma multiforme. It is brain cancer. It is always stage 4 when it's discovered. There is no known cure right now. There's a lot of new things being developed for it. The biggest thing that I convinced him of was our children were very young. Our youngest was 6, she was in 1st grade, and we have twins, and they were in 4th grade, so they were 6 and 9. It was right around the holidays when he was diagnosed, right before Christmas. His second surgery was just after Christmas in 2008, and he didn't have a choice. He needed to be there for the kids. I wasn't the only one. My mom and dad stepped up. They were there. My dad started taking him every day down to chemo and radiation, and when I couldn't because the kids were so small, we had a lot of help from my family and our friends. I called on my cousin, I think went and stayed with you in the hospital one night when I couldn't get there. It was just, at that point, it just wasn't an option. And it wasn't until 2012, I mean, he went back to work right away. Right after his initial treatments. He continued on treatment while he was working. And then in 2012 was when it came back, and we had to go on different medications, and he had another radiation, a pinpoint radiation surgery. It was just, you just did what you had to do. He hasn't been on any type of treatment for over a year. Scans are still stable as far as we know. So, but every 2 months. So it's always just moving forward, seeing what the doctors have to say, and going from there. And then they say, oh, he's in the 1% of people still living at this point, because the average life expectancy with someone who's been diagnosed with GBM is 15 to 18 months. He's just fought through everything. I mean, he went back to work full time until they told him he couldn't because of his speech. He was in sales. So he just kind of, if I said, you need to try this, he did it. You don't really ask a lot of questions.
No.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Good.
But yeah.
I was just a few weeks shy of 16 when I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma. The way I kind of found out was that season, it was the end of February, I decided instead of wrestling that season, I would just lift through for football to try to bulk up and improve my, my game a little. So I was doing lots of running after school and lots of weightlifting, and my shin on my left leg started to be sore. And so I assumed, you know, shin splints or growing pains, or, you know, it's not a big deal. And it gradually just progressed where it hurt more, or it hurt not even after I was running, but just in general. So finally I fessed up to my mom that, you know, it was bothering me, and we went to our family doctor, who ordered a CAT scan, and those results came back that there was a tumor there. I got to know several fellow adolescents going through different types of cancer. The first person I met was Shelley, and she had the same type of cancer I did, osteosarcoma. And then there was Dana and Matt. Dana and Matt and I kind of were, the Three Musketeers in a way. We in fact saw the Bucket List movie in theaters when it came out together. And it was funny because we're in the theater and they get to one of the hospital scenes and we all look at each other like, those IV poles are just like ours. We were laughing, it was great. And at that point we were, healthy and well. And Matt is married and surviving and thriving in Minneapolis. Just this week marked 8 years since Dana passed away. But one of the cool things about our friendship was we share a birthday. And she was exactly a year younger than me. And so even though it's hard that she's gone, that friendship, lives on. My grandmother was darned and determined that she was going to see me better, whether she was going to cook the weight back on me or she'd pray for the doctors and she'd pray for me and she prayed for the surgeon. She was just so determined that I was going to get through this and she was going to figure out a way. And I'd always been close with her. I think her determination and fighting energy definitely rubbed off and added to my own, that I could do it, and she wasn't going to take no for an answer.